world in shock. He just exposed the real story. No punctuation. The world stands still in a trembling dawn, a whisper rising from the desert floor, a single truth cracking through the old stone walls, as if a hidden sun had been waiting beneath the sand, as if a secret had grown wings in the silence. He steps forward with a heart carrying storms. He walks like a memory that refuses to die. He breathes like a man who finally sets fire to the shadows. Once he guarded the story in the safety of closed nights. Once he held the weight of untold chapters in his chest. But today the veil grows too heavy. Today the sky pulls at him. Today the truth inside him begins to burn through every locked corner. He speaks, and the world leans closer. He remembers the path where love once walked beside him. He remembers the gentle hand that shaped his courage. He remembers the face that lived quietly in the unseen places, older than the moments he could hold, softer than the breaths he learned to hide. She was the chapter no one dared to read. She was the silence everyone feared to break. She was the reason his heart never followed the script written for him. Her presence lived in the room like a desert lamp, lighting him with warmth no throne could offer, guiding him through storms that crowns could not calm. Her eyes knew the poetry he buried. Her voice held the strength he pretended he did not need. She saw the child inside the prince. She touched the man behind the royal veil. And in that seeing, he was reborn into a truth he could not speak. But the world demanded stories carved in marble. The world demanded perfect lines, solid and unbroken. The world wanted him shaped by duty, not desire. So he carried her name like a hidden drop of rain. He carried her memory like a star trapped in daylight. He carried her presence like a song he could not sing aloud. Yet time refuses to remain silent forever. Truth does not age. Love does not disappear into dust. Even a prince cannot outrun the echo of a soul that once held him. Today the echo has become a storm. Today the silence has grown wings. Today he finally steps into the open with the truth burning bright. The world watches as he unfolds the pages. He tells them about a love not written in gold ink, not celebrated in royal halls, not blessed by the loud world, but blessed by the quiet. Born in the places where eyes do not reach, kept alive by two hearts that feared nothing but separation. A love that crossed age, a love that crossed judgment, a love that lived like a secret flame under a cold moon. He speaks of the nights she taught him to be brave, of the mornings when her wisdom rewrote his fate, of the moments when he found himself reflected in her calm strength, of the life that could have been theirs if the world were kinder, if fate were softer, if time were willing. He exposes the story they tried to bury. He uncovers the truth they wanted lost. He reveals the woman they told him to forget. But the heart never follows orders. The heart remembers what the world abandons. So the truth now walks beside him like an old companion, no longer hiding in the corners of forgotten nights, no longer trembling under the weight of judgment. It breathes freely in the open air. It stretches its limbs like a long caged bird. It rises with him as if destiny has finally loosened its grip. He continues his story with a voice carved from honesty, a voice shaped by years of silence, a voice that carries the strength of a heart finally unchained. The world listens, and the world feels the tremor of what he reveals. For his truth is not a tale of thrones. It is not a tale shaped by laws. It is not a tale built of crowns and halls. It is a tale of two souls traveling against every current. He remembers the first moment he saw her. Not a moment written in glory, not a moment surrounded by royal brightness, but a simple crossing of paths, a gentle stillness that settled over him, a warmth that moved through him like a sun rising from within. Her presence was not loud. Her beauty was not the kind that demanded the world to turn. Yet something in her carried the power of a quiet universe, a universe he wanted to explore, a universe he was destined to lose. She lived with a grace untouched by noise. She walked with wisdom old as desert stones. She spoke with a calm that softened every storm in him. And he, young and uncertain, found a mirror in her soul, a mirror that showed him all the pieces of himself he had never dared to see. But love born in silence is love born in danger. The world does not forgive what it cannot control. Their bond grew in hidden corners. Their moments bloomed in the shelter of darkness. Each touch a promise, each breath a stolen eternity, each glance a confession too powerful for words. He speaks of nights when the desert stars seemed to bow above them, of hours when time slowed to the rhythm of her heartbeat, of mornings when he feared the world would take her away, of days when he wished destiny were kinder. For she carried a weight heavier than judgment, the weight of being the one the world would never accept, the woman older than the story they expected him to write, the soul wiser than what they believed he deserved. He remembers her strength when he faltered. He remembers her courage when his own wavered. She held him like a truth beyond time. She guided him when the world felt unfamiliar. She protected him from the noise that tried to shape him, and still she asked for nothing. Her love was never loud. Her love never asked for thrones. Her love only asked for honesty, a request he could not give at the time, a request that now returns to haunt him. As he continues speaking, the world around him begins to shift. Faces soften, hearts open. The truth changes the air. It rewrites the silence. It turns shame into remembrance. It turns judgment into understanding. He tells them how he lost her, not through betrayal, not through choice, but through the force of a world too afraid of its own reflection. They separated him from her. They hid her behind walls he could not break. They erased. The final chapter rises like a long-awaited dawn, soft at first, gentle in the way truth returns after years of darkness. But then it grows. It brightens. It expands until the horizon itself feels too small to hold it. He stands before the world with a heart no longer divided, a heart no longer running from its own reflection. He speaks of the last night he saw her, a night wrapped in quiet breathing, a night when her eyes held both sorrow and acceptance, a night when the desert winds whispered warnings neither of them wanted to hear. She knew the world would not bend. She knew fate would not shift its path. She knew their bond would become a tale whispered behind closed doors. Yet she held him with a calm stronger than royal walls. She touched his face as if memorizing what she was about to lose. She smiled with a softness that shattered him, for she was not afraid of losing him. She was only afraid he would lose himself. He remembers her final words, not spoken with sound, but written through the way she looked at him. Her gaze carved a promise into him, a promise that he would one day speak without fear, that he would one day return her to the light. that he would one day tell the world that love does not follow the lines they draw. And now, years later, he stands fulfilling that silent promise. He tells them how he searched for her in every breath, how he carried her through storms no one saw, how her absence shaped him more than any victory, how her memory guided him through roads he did not understand. He tells them she was the reason he learned gentleness, the reason he learned strength, the reason he learned that a throne means nothing if the heart is empty. He confesses that there were days he hated the silence, days he wished he had fought harder, days he wished he had refused the path forced upon him, days he wished he had held her hand and run into the unknown. But regret is a teacher with sharp edges. Regret teaches what courage fails to show, and he carried those lessons like stones in his chest. Now as the world listens, they see not a prince, not a figure shaped by power, but a man stripped of every shield, a man showing the wound he once hid too deeply, a man who has finally understood that truth is the only way to honor what once saved him. He closes his eyes for a moment, and in that breath, he feels her again, not as a ghost, not as a memory, but as a presence alive in the air around him. The silence becomes warm, the light becomes soft, as if she has returned just long enough to witness her truth being freed. He speaks her name in the language of the heart, a language without sound, a language made of pulse and remembrance, a language the world finally understands. He lets her story fly beyond him. He lets it rise like a bird long trapped in a cage. He lets it soar into the sky she deserved. And the world, touched by a truth so raw, falls into a quiet that feels sacred. They do not gasp. They do not judge. They simply receive what he offers, a story hidden, a love forbidden, a woman forgotten by